in order to heal, I had to see and just be in a constant state of joy. And that isn't to say that bad things don't happen. Of course they do, but I can choose to see the good in all of it.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 228 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really excited to bring you a conversation that is incredibly important today. If you have ever said to yourself, I suck, I can never do anything right, what's wrong with me? Why does everybody else know this but me? Have ever had one of those thoughts? Spoiler alert, if you're breathing, you've probably had one of those thoughts. And today's guest, she calls herself a joyologist, which is so fantastic. Her name is Coleen Greco. She shares the moment that she realized she was doing that to herself and how she started to change things. She now teaches her clients what she calls the SNAP method. And she breaks down that entire method for us in today's podcast episode. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you've been feeling stuck, if you feel like every time you make progress, you snap back and you find yourself back in the same position again, today's episode will really help actually move you through that. And I really want to acknowledge Colleen for her generosity in sharing her personal stories in this episode. Some are very, very serious and some are really fun and very normal, like, eating an entire package of Oreos, but then also how she figured out to connect nutrition and mindset in a way most other nutrition coaches were missing. I think it's really powerful that we listen for that piece in our own lives, right? There's so many times we can make progress, but how do we maintain that progress and keep going? Joy just isn't her calling. It's her middle name as well. Well, actually, her middle name is Joyce, but we kind of roll with it. Coleen Greco is a compassionate, empathetic, and violently authentic human being, but she wasn't always like that. In many ways, she has been plagued by her own self-defeating thoughts, which she generously shares in this episode. Through her own journey of self-discovery, spiritual exploration, and personal crisis, Coleen has managed to transform her life into the most unimaginable source of joy. And today, Coleen calls herself a joyologist. She provides mindset and nutrition coaching, as well as personal training to people who feel stuck and want to reclaim the joy in their life. If this sounds like you, I want you to pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Coleen, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking about joy today.
Me too. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this discussion and I just love the essence of your show. So yeah, let's go for it. Let's dive into joy.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, thank you so much for that. And I mean, how often, I don't know, I don't always get to jump onto a podcast, flip on the camera and say, so let's talk about joy. So I'm really looking forward to this. As we dive in, what I would love to know, and I know the girlfriends love to know this too. So there are so many things that we're good at. There's so many talents we all have. There's so many different ways we can take this one shot of life that we have. Why is being a joyologist what you do?
Okay, so if we take a trip down memory lane, I don't know that I ever saw myself going in this direction. In retrospect, when I look at all the different things I've done throughout my life, I've always been in service to others. So like that thread is now very obvious to me, but I would have never imagined this is where I would end up. So growing up, before I submitted my college applications, I wanted to be an accountant. No offense to the accountants out there, but that is not what I should have been.
Got it. Yeah.
My sister said, I think you should go into more like hospitality, places where you're like in front of the public, working with customers. And I did that and I loved it. I didn't realize how natural that was for me, but something was missing. And so I went more into a marketing role, got my MBA and thought, I'm going to be a brand strategist, like for a fun company like M&M Mars or Procter and Gamble. Only the highest paying co-op during my MBA program was with EMC, now Dell. And so
Got it.
Naturally I took that and ignored, there were openings with Procter and Gamble and I got an offer. I got an offer with M&M Mars. So all of it was in front of me. I could have taken that path and I didn't. I went the money route. And
Interesting. Okay.
then I stayed there for 26 years, not with
Whoa,
EMC,
whoa.
IT. Yeah.
Are you serious? That's wow. Because usually when you follow the money, hand raised, done it too, right? Like usually when you do that, it doesn't last very long. How did you manage that for 26 years?
I didn't realize that I had another option. I really didn't. I was like, well, this is this is what I do. This is
Yeah.
where I am. And, I got married, I had kids, then I had responsibilities. And I don't know. I just woke up one day and realized this is not my life.
Mm.
And then made a switch. But I never got quiet enough with myself to realize I had another option.
So the story though, isn't it? It really is. It's like, oh, well, this is what one does. End of
Right.
story. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that feeling too, except that my chest hurt every day and my stomach was always upset and I wasn't sleeping very well. But this is what
Oh,
one does. Yeah. It's amazing how quickly we can just step right into that. And then life takes off and you're like, wait a minute. It's like that Dire Straits song. This is not my beautiful house. Right? It's like, what is this? How did this happen? That's amazing. So what was the
yeah.
moment for you? I mean, 26 years is no joke. So what was the
No.
moment for you that had you like pop? What had to happen in your life for things to flip around like that?
So trigger warning for some of the listeners, because I know this can be a difficult topic. One of my sons had a suicide attempt, and luckily I will just jump ahead and say he was unsuccessful and now he is thriving and annoying me just like a teenage boy should.
Thank
Right.
God.
So like,
Thank God.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank God we are good. But 6 years ago, not the case. My
Right.
entire world was shattered. All of us were shattered.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, where to go. I live in Boston, where I have access to the greatest and the finest institutions, and yet no one would help us. If you can imagine, at the time he was 10, there aren't a lot of people that willingly take on a case like that. And so we made hundreds of phone calls. No one would return our phone call. And so we said, this is up to us. We have to rebuild. In the early days, I didn't handle it well, and I ate and drank my way up to weights you can only imagine.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and so realizing that it was up to really me as kind of like the leader of the house to set a better example for him, for my other son, and for my husband,
Mm.
and started to take my health back under control, thinking, in these types of situations, there's very little that you can control. But I can control how I respond to situations. I can control how I respond to my own emotions and literally the food and drink that go into my body. I can control that. And so I started to lose the weight and was working with a nutrition coach who was not willing to help me develop strategies to keep the weight off. And I
Oh,
thought,
interesting. Okay.
that's bizarre,
I
right?
was
Like,
say that's kind of the game, no? I mean, like the losing isn't fun, but that's not actually where the hard part is, right? It's in the maintenance of it and the changing of
in the
lifestyles.
mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all the
Yeah.
mindset. And when I said, like, help me understand, like, what is it that you do then? And he said, well, I'm not your therapist. I said, I'm not looking for I have one of those and they're not doing me any good either. Fine. But you don't see the connection between your mindset and your food choices. And if you
Mm,
don't see that, you have missed the boat. And I
mm,
know I can do this better than you can. And it was through my own healing and healing my family where we realized that everything we did needed to center around joy. Joy became almost an obsession.
hmm.
By the way, Joyce is my middle name. So Colleen means girl, Joyce means happy. And that had been like a thread throughout my life. And I never made that connection. But in order to heal, I had to see and just be in a constant state of joy. And that isn't to say that bad things don't happen. Of course they do. But I can choose to see the good in all of it. Before you and I started talking today, we were talking about, the snow. Okay, it's freezing outside, right? Like that's a fact for most of us. Some people actually enjoy this weather. I don't, but it's beautiful, right? So I can choose to believe that it's freezing, or I can choose to believe that it's beautiful. And my energy can only go in one place. So
Mm,
where am I going to put
mm.
that? And it was my choice to just see the beauty in everything, even in the darkest of moments, to
Yeah.
be in a place of gratitude for the opportunity to change so much of what was going on.
Mm.
Um, I'm just forever grateful for that time.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to pause really quickly and thank you for sharing that because there are so many parents who are silently suffering through this epidemic of children thinking that suicide is an option, like a
Mhm.
viable option at very tender ages before they have a prefrontal cortex or have any idea of what those long-term consequences are or what that actually means. And the pain is extraordinary. So thank you for sharing because it lets other people know they're not alone. And it also lets people know that there's another side. As coaches, we're always saying there's always a next, right? This is happening right now. And in 6 months, something else will be happening and you'll be into that. And that is the next. Not that it's not painful and not that it's not real, but there's always a next. And I think what you're sharing is there is a next, and the ability here to actually choose not only what goes into your body, which is a massive choice we all make every single day,
Yes.
but how you view it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And, that's all part of self-love, right? So if you lack self-love, then generally speaking, maybe you're not feeding yourself the very best foods. Something upsets you, you run to the pantry and eat a bag of chips or a package of Oreos, which I have also done, right? But as you begin to develop self-love, you start to say, like, I deserve better than this. I deserve the best of the best. Why not me? All of those things run through your head, and it just leads to this level of freedom and opportunity that I could have never imagined. I mean, shifting from a scarcity mindset, which is, of course, where we were, probably had been my entire life, not even knowing it, to this mindset of abundance where anything is possible, just feels like it almost feels like I live a different life. There are definitely parts of my life that I almost forget were part of my story, part of my experience. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like it absolutely just feels like a different life. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I run a program called the Abundance Academy, and that is the most common thing we hear is it's like, this is a different way to live life. Like
Yes.
I didn't know that this was a possible way to live life. And it's so great that you've discovered that and shared with other people what you've discovered. So as you were really talking to the nutrition coach, I find this fascinating, right? So I don't care about long-term success. I'll just get the weight off you, nutrition coach. What was the mindset shift for you that had to happen? You said you sort of figured it out yourself and that you were able to sort of pop this. Do you remember a moment, or was there a time where you were like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I think I'm onto something here?
Yeah. So that day I went outside, put a little blanket out, had my dog next to me. And I know this sounds crazy, but I firmly believe the SNAP method found me. I just started writing and thinking through, like, the triggers that hit, what happens, how do I deal with them, what type of physical response do I have, and realizing that if I told myself a certain story, then that means I can tell myself a different story, right?
Mm,
I told myself this sweater is green. I can tell myself it's blue, and I can reprogram the ego to believe a different story. All
mm,
the ego is like a memory bank, and it serves up stories to, I would say, generally speaking, protect you. But it
mhm,
doesn't know when it's gone too far, and it doesn't know how to, hold back. And so when these stories come up and you feel triggered, that's the ego saying, oh, I got this. Here's the story. Remember, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. And I have the evidence right here. And you're like, that's right. I'm not good enough. That's right. I remember. And you run for the food. Breaking the emotional connection to those stories and then retiring those stories is really the power of how you keep the weight off. I mean, it's been 4.5 years I've kept the weight off
wow.
because I don't have that emotional connection to food anymore. Now I look at it as food. And you can test this theory. Food's job is to keep you alive.
Mhm.
Like, stop eating for like 3 or 4 days and let me know how that goes.
Not
Right?
gonna go well. Yeah.
Right. And but it's not there to be your friend. It's not there to punish you. It's simply there to keep you alive. And we put all these unfair expectations on food, and that's what gets us into trouble.
Mm,
I have a client that just said to me last week, I used to do this with alcohol and now I'm
yeah.
doing it with food. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know. Like, but he had to get there himself, right? I can tell him all I want, but until he believes it, he's not really going to make that shift. And so that was a great moment for me. Like, I wanted to play the graduation music. So I was like, you're getting there.
Like, you nailed it, man. You got it. You got it. Gold star, the prize. So with this though, so the SNAP method is your method for actually working with your clients. Can you share a little bit with us about the method and what one does?
Yeah, absolutely. So SNAP is an acronym. S stands for stop. So when the trigger comes, and it will come, you simply stop and let it kind of wash all over you. Don't run to the pantry. Just let it happen. And acknowledge it too. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'll get into why in a second. But N stands for notice. And really, this is when I tell people to get out their journal and you record all of the symptoms and the stories as you believe them to be. And when I say symptoms, I mean that your body has a visceral response when you are triggered. For me, I get that really big lump in my throat, like I've just swallowed a golf ball. Some people, their heart race, some people break out into a sweat. Everybody has a physical response. And so record that, because soon we will be looking for trends. And then also the stories as you believe it to be, because there are about, 50 versions of the truth, yours being one of them. But generally there's a slant on that truth, right? And so it's important to just have it be your actual version, your truth. And once you've done that, then you can go back and start to judge it. But as you're in that notice phase, it's important to just let the pen keep going. There is a psychological connection between your brain, your fingertips, the pen and the paper that you just can't break. And the amazing part that I've discovered is the pen won't even let you lie. So, you'll start to write and say like, oh, I'm so upset with Colleen because of A, B, C. And then the pen's like, well, maybe it was a little bit more like this, right? And it just kind of like gently guides you towards the ultimate truth. The third step is accept or analyze. And that's when you can go back and review your entry and separate the facts from the emotions. I have this story that I love to tell about my poor husband. I don't know why he becomes the butt of this story every single time, but it's a good one because I feel like most people can relate. We're going to the gym. The morning workout time was my time. And he used to work out at night. And he decided to now work out in the morning. And I said, okay, but like that's my time. So you need to go back first and start getting the kids, ready for the morning. And so he would leave about 15 minutes early. And this particular day, I ran into a friend. And as a result, kind of got stuck in a conversation. And so I was kind of running late. Well, I didn't know he needed to be to work early that day. And so I got this spicy little phone call. And if you guys ever meet Steve Greco, he is like the nicest man on the planet. And so a spicy phone call is rare, but I got one that day and it was like, where are you? And when I hung up the phone, I just said, I can never do anything right. And it's such a basic example, but relatable too. And that story was on repeat that entire day until I said, hang on a second. Is it really true that I could never do anything right? Like, let's look at the facts. And I really did. I wrote all the things I had done right that day. Like I showered, check, right?
Listen, that's a check mark a lot of days. Yes.
Yes. And then the things that I had not done right. And there was one. And I don't share that to say like I'm a perfectionist, but I'm just looking at the reality. The story isn't true. And I had to tell myself, that's a lie. I do a lot of things right. And so that analyze step is really important to say like, hang on a second.
Right.
Maybe we should apply some grace and compassion to the situation, calm down a little bit and see it for what it really is. You made a misstep. And by the way, so did he. So it's not a big deal. We move on. And the last step is P, practice gratitude. You want to thank the trigger for coming because it's your body's way of saying that you still have work to do. You haven't completely mastered whatever it is you were meant to learn. These triggers are like mirrors to us and they're showing us the lessons that we need to learn. So be thankful for that because it's a growth moment. And, beyond everything, it's being kind and compassionate and gracious to yourself. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're human, right? And I think that's the part that we all miss. So especially as moms, we are the absolute worst at this. We feel like we have to be superhuman because we wear so many hats. Yeah. And I can't speak for the other demographics, but certainly I can speak for moms. And I know that realizing I was human, I was like, wow, I had no idea I was human. Yeah. And that was liberating in and of itself.
So good. That is so good. I just have to go back to A for analyze for just a second, because that story about I can never do anything right. I want every single person listening to ask yourself how many times you've said some iteration of that to yourself. When I work with people one-on-one in the Abundance Academy or as clients or in the sales mastermind, they have Voxer access to me. And I would say 2 or 3 times a day, I will get that message. Why can't I do anything right? And that story, right? I love how you describe that inside of our mindset and our ability to choose how much the ego will take over and go, oh no, I've got this problem. Remember, you're dumb. Or whatever
Yeah.
story it
Oh,
puts
yeah.
in there, right? And you go, oh, that's right. I forgot. I got ambitious for 1 second. And then you're right. I'm an idiot. I'm going to go watch Netflix. Like that idea of how often that comes in. I mean, Colleen, that is so generous of you to share so honestly. So I think it's so important that we recognize our shared humanity in these moments and that none of us, there is no one that you know on this planet who doesn't have one of those. But it's how we learn to manage them and deal with them and talk to them. And that analyze piece, I just feel is so, so critical of like, is that true? Is that real?
I would bet my paycheck and beyond that Gandhi had limiting beliefs, right?
Totally.
Like there, we get to control how many we hang on to. And, some of them are just cute and whatever, maybe not worth my time addressing. But for the big ones,
Yeah.
like when my cousin called me fat, I was 10 years old. 100% not true, but I held on to that story for 34 years. That was a good one to get rid of. I can never do anything right is another one. So, you pick and choose your battles, but it is possible. And it is, it feels as though a 50-pound weight has been lifted off your shoulders.
And for you, literally, right? I mean, it was 50 pounds you lost, right, Colleen? I mean, come on. That was like the best example ever. I love when we do that.
True.
And that's so funny about your story about being little and being called fat, because my stepbrother, when I was 11 years old, my best friend was like really, really thin. When like prepubescent, when we're like skeletons with hair running around, right? Like she was
Right.
really, really thin. And he goes, oh, look, it's toothpick and elephant. And that stuck with me forever, forever. Anytime I went on a diet, I'm like, no more elephants. Forever, right? These moments and like being able to tell the truth about them, like just even acknowledging them, right? It has all of us go, wait a minute, is that real? I was fine. I
Yeah.
wasn't fat at all, right? Like, I look
Believe
back at
you
pictures,
weren't.
I'm like, I thought I was fat, right? And there's all those things that we go through as humans because a story gets lodged, right? So again, going back to your A and SNAP, I just think analyzing and one of my favorite questions inside there too, that does bring me a lot of joy, honestly, Colleen, is where did you learn that? I love that question so much because it's like, oh yeah, my stepbrother who was 12 at the time, who knew everything, right?
Yeah.
Said that one time, right? It's just so crazy. You go, oh my God, I've hung on to this all these years, and just sort of putting it in that perspective, not to make ourselves wrong or to beat up, but like you said, just to put it in perspective of like, oh no, that was true. I didn't handle that one moment like the best that I could have. But in retrospect, for the whole day, I'm actually doing really well and I can clean that up. Right? It's like, oh,
100%.
magic. Yeah. This is
And
super powerful.
if she had realized, I mean, I don't know if she's ever heard any of these interviews. Maybe she realizes this stuck with me for that long. I certainly never told her. But if she realized that, how devastated would she be? I would venture to guess quite devastated. She said words, I gave them meaning. And that again was like very empowering. Wow, if I gave it meaning, I can squash the meaning of that and tell myself a different story.
Very good.
So same with
So
your
important.
stepbrother. Although I might send him a
No,
note.
yeah, I don't know. I could send him a couple notes, that one. Yeah. It's like so funny, right? I always joke around about family. It's like, why do they make me nuts? Because they know exactly what to say. And they put all of the triggers in you and then they push on them. It's like so funny. But I'm so grateful for this conversation today, Colleen. I think it's, anybody listening is really going to set you up for a different way to approach your mindset. Speaking of, I think you have a free gift about limiting beliefs. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. And so I believe they'll be in the show notes. Is that right? It's called Crush Limiting Beliefs. And it really walks you through the SNAP method in a little bit more detail so that you can start to apply that methodology right away. And again, there might be some limiting beliefs that are kind of like cute and annoying, and you might get rid of those right away. And others you might tackle, over the course of time and set free. And when those stories come back up, because they always come, they just sort of keep on driving by. And that is so amazing when you see that. You're like, I see the trigger coming, and there it goes. Right. So that's when you've graduated.
I love that. That really is all the power, right? That's where all the power lies, is in those moments. Colleen, I'm so happy that you are helping people work on this and bring more joy into their lives. If someone's listening in and they're like, I need me some more Colleen, where should people go to find you?
Great question. And yes, find me. I think that would be amazing. I would love to continue the conversation. My Instagram is at the Coleen Greco. I'm the youngest of 7. My mom was not thinking, and it's Colleen with 1 L. So I don't even have a cool story about the spelling of my name. It's just, she was like, whatever, like just
put it on the certificate. You were
baby
really the youngest of 7?
Yeah, she was like, whatever, girl, boy, I don't care. Yeah. So at the Coleen Greco, Colleen with 1 L, and I would love to continue the conversation. And I appreciate you having me today.
I love it. Oh,
awesome
Colleen, thank you so much. These conversations are everything. This is like, we hope people listen in as they're like, that was the one time I knew I could change things. That was the moment. It's so great. Colleen, thank you for being so generous with our girlfriends today. And I can't wait to see how things continue to progress.
Thank you.